Tonight, as the rain falls outside your window, let me tell you about 10 souls who heard something else in the darkness, something that whispered their names when no one else was there. Close your eyes, let the storm wash over you, and listen. Story 1. The whispering wallpaper, rain sounds continue softly in background. Sarah moved into her grandmother's Victorian house in Portland, Maine, 3 weeks after the funeral. The house had been in their family for 4 generations, and Sarah felt a strange obligation to keep it that way. She was 26, working remotely as a graphic designer, and the mortgage was surprisingly affordable. Everyone told her she was lucky. The house was beautiful in that haunting, Gothic way, all dark wood paneling, high ceilings, and ornate wallpaper that seemed to shift patterns depending on the light. The wallpaper in the master bedroom was particularly striking. Deep burgundy with gold filigree forming intricate, swirling designs. Sarah loved it immediately. For the first week, everything was perfect. She set up her workspace in the sunroom, arranged her grandmother's antique furniture, and even adopted a cat from the local shelter, a black Tom she named Midnight. The cat seemed nervous in the bedroom, though. He'd sit at the threshold, ears flat, and refuse to enter after dark. It started on the 8th night. Sarah was lying in bed, scrolling through her phone before sleep, when she heard it. A whisper. So faint she thought it might be the wind, but it was distinctly a voice. She couldn't make out words, just the sensation of someone speaking very quietly. Very close to her ear. She sat up, heart hammering. Hello? Nothing. Just the sound of rain beginning to patter against the windows. She convinced herself it was the old house settling, pipes groaning, the acoustics playing tricks. She turned off her phone and tried to sleep, but the whispers came again. This time, they seemed to be coming from the walls themselves. Multiple voices, overlapping, like a distant conversation heard through thin walls. Sarah pressed her ear against the burgundy wallpaper, and her blood went cold. The voices grew louder, more distinct, though still incomprehensible. They sounded urgent, desperate even. She pulled away, backing toward the door. Midnight was sitting in the hallway, staring at the wall where she'd been listening. His tail bushed out to twice its normal size. The next morning, Sarah called a contractor. I think there might be mice or something in the walls, she explained. I'm hearing noises at night. The contractor, a gruff man named Bill, who'd worked on houses in Portland for 30 years, came that afternoon. He tapped along the walls, used a stud finder, even drilled a small inspection hole. Nothing here, he said, looking puzzled. Walls are solid. No gaps, no evidence of pests. You sure you're not just hearing the house settle? But Sarah knew what she'd heard. That night, armed with determination and a glass of wine for courage, she decided to stay awake and document it. She set her phone to record audio and placed it on the knitstand. At 3:17 a.m., the whispers started again. This time, Sarah forced herself to listen carefully, to really focus on the sounds. And then she heard it clear as day, her name. Sarah. Sarah. Help us, Sarah. She grabbed her phone, stopped the recording, and fled to the living room couch, where she stayed until dawn. Every light in the house blazing. In the morning, she played back the recording. The whispers were there, caught clearly on the audio. But there was something else too underneath the voices, a rhythmic sound like breathing or heartbeats. Dozens of them, pulsing out of sync. Sarah began researching the house's history. What she found made her wish she'd never asked. In 1902, the house had been a boarding house for young women working in the textile mills. 23 women lived there under the supervision of a landlady named Margaret Thorne. One winter, during a particularly harsh February, a fire broke out in the middle of the night. The landlady escaped. All 23 women died, trapped in their rooms. Margaret had locked the bedroom doors from the outside, a common practice at the time to protect the girl's virtue. The master bedroom, where Sarah slept, had been the landlady's room, the only room with a door that locked from the inside. Sarah felt sick. The women had died calling for help, pounding on their doors, choking on smoke, while Margaret Thorne saved herself and locked the front door behind her, leaving them to burn. But that wasn't the worst part. Sarah found an old newspaper article from 1903. Margaret Thorne had gone mad with guilt and hung herself in her bedroom, Sarah's bedroom, 1 year to the day after the fire. Before she died, she covered the fire-damaged walls with new wallpaper. Burgundy with gold filigree, the same wallpaper that was there now, over a century later. Never changed, never removed. That night, Sarah couldn't leave. Some dark curiosity, or perhaps the weight of those 23 souls, kept her there. She lay in bed, lights off, waiting. The whispers came at 3:17 a.m. again. But this time, they were different. Angry. The voices rose in volume, no longer pleading but accusing. You sleep where she slept. You live while we died. You hear us but do nothing. Sarah tried to speak, to apologize, to explain she didn't know, but her voice caught in her throat. And then the wallpaper began to move. The gold filigree patterns unwound themselves, stretching across the burgundy like golden veins, forming shapes, faces, 23 women's faces, their mouths open in silent screams, their eyes hollow with accusation. Sarah scrambled out of bed, but the door wouldn't open. The antique lock had engaged itself, the key turning in the mechanism with no hand to move it. She pounded on the door, screaming. Just as they had screamed, the temperature in the room dropped. Sarah's breath came out in visible puffs. The faces in the wallpaper began to push outward, as if trying to break through the surface. Fingers pressed against the paper from behind, creating bulges that looked horrifyingly real. Then a 24th face appeared. Margaret Thorne. Her features twisted with guilt and madness, tears streaming down her paper cheeks. The whispers stopped. Margaret's mouth moved, and this time Sarah heard a single clear voice. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But you must stay. You must understand what I did, what I became. Sarah pressed herself against the door, tears streaming down her face. Please, she whispered. Please let me go. We can't leave, the voices answered in unison. We died here. We're bound here. And now, so are you. The door lock clicked open. Sarah didn't remember running down the stairs, grabbing her car keys, or driving away. She remembered nothing until she was sitting in a 24-hour diner 40 miles away, shaking uncontrollably, a cold cup of coffee in her hands. She never went back. She abandoned the house, still full of her belongings, her grandmother's heirlooms, everything. She called her family from a hotel and told them to sell it. She didn't care about the money. She just wanted nothing to do with it ever again. But here's the thing that still haunts Sarah. Even now, 5 years later, living in Seattle, as far from that house as she could manage while staying in the Pacific Northwest. Sometimes, late at night, when the rain falls hard against her apartment windows, she hears them, the whispers, fainter now, distant, like they're calling from very far away. And she knows, with absolute certainty, that part of her never left that room. Part of her is still there, pressed into that burgundy wallpaper with gold filigree, her face joining the others, her voice added to their eternal chorus. And when she closes her eyes, she can feel the pattern of that wallpaper, its texture against her cheek, wrapping around her like a shroud, pulling her back, always pulling her back, to the room where 23 women died, and where the 24th went mad, and where Sarah herself left something she can never retrieve, her peace. Rain intensifies slightly. Story 2. The night shift, rain continues with distant thunder. Marcus took the night security job at Riverside Medical Center because it paid $23 an hour and required absolutely no qualifications beyond a clean background check. At 32, recently divorced, and living in his sister's basement, he wasn't in a position to be picky. The hospital was old, built in 1957 and scheduled for demolition in 8 months to make way for a new facility. Until then, someone needed to watch it overnight. You'll mostly be alone, his supervisor, a tired woman named Helen, told him on his first day. We have some administrative staff and maintenance on the first floor until about midnight. After that, it's just you. Do your rounds every 2 hours. Check all the floors. Make sure nobody's broken in. No fires. No flooding. Write down anything unusual in the log. Which floors? Marcus asked, looking at the building directory. The hospital had 8 floors. Helen paused. 1 through 7. Don't go to the 8th floor. Why not? It's closed off. Has been for 15 years. Asbestos remediation that never got finished because the funding dried up. The stairwell door is chained shut. Just don't worry about it. Marcus shrugged. Easy enough. The first week was mind-numbingly boring. He'd do his rounds, footsteps echoing through empty corridors lined with outdated hospital equipment, old wheelchairs, and vintage medical posters about polio and tuberculosis. The building smelled like disinfectant and decay, that particular scent of institutions left to slowly die. He'd watch Netflix on his phone between rounds, eat his packed dinner, and count down until 6 a.m. when the day shift security guard would arrive. On his 8th night, he was doing his 2 a.m. rounds on the 7th floor when he heard it. A sound from above. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, pacing back and forth directly over his head. Marcus froze, listening. The 8th floor. Someone was walking around up there. He pulled out his radio. Helen, you there? No response. She wasn't on duty at night. He tried the maintenance supervisor. Static. The footsteps continued. Pacing. Back and forth. Back and forth. Marcus's rational mind kicked in. Probably a homeless person who'd found a way in. It happened. He'd have to check it out, chained door or not. He couldn't just leave someone up there, especially if there really was an asbestos problem. He found the 8th floor stairwell on the north side of the building. Sure enough, the door was chained shut with a heavy padlock. A faded sign read, "Danger. Authorized personnel only. Asbestos. Contamination." The footsteps had stopped. Marcus pressed his ear against the door. Nothing. Maybe he'd imagined it. Old buildings made noises. Pipes, wind, the structure settling. He turned to leave. Then he heard something else. A voice, singing. A woman's voice, thin and reedy, singing something that sounded like a lullaby. The words were indistinct, but the melody was haunting, sad, like a funeral dirge disguised as a children's song. "Hello?" Marcus called through the door. "This is security. You're not supposed to be up here." The singing stopped abruptly. A long moment of silence. Then, a knock. 3 sharp raps on the door, from the other side. So close, as if someone was standing right there, inches away, separated only by the door and its chains. Marcus jumped back. His heart hammered. Who's there? Another knock. 3 more. Then a voice. Clear this time, female, pleasant even. "Can you help me? I can't find my son." "Have you seen my son?" "Ma'am, you need to leave the building." "How did you get up there?" "I can't find him. He was here for his tonsillectomy." "That was Tuesday." "Or was it Thursday?" "I can't remember." "Have you seen him?" "He's 7. He has red hair. His name is David." Marcus's skin prickled. Something was very wrong about this. The tone was too calm, too pleasant for someone asking about a missing child. "Ma'am, this building is closed. There are no patients here. You need to come down." But I can hear him crying. He cries every night. He's scared of the dark. I need to find him. The door is chained. How did you get up there? Silence. Then, slowly, the door handle began to turn. The chains rattled but held. The handle turned all the way to the left, then to the right, then back again. Testing. Marcus backed away. "Stop that. The door is secured. You need to find another way down." The handle stopped moving. The voice came again, and this time it was different, colder, angry. "There is no other way down. There was never another way down." Marcus ran. He didn't care how it looked. He ran back to his security desk on the first floor, locked himself in the office, and didn't do any more rounds that night. He sat there, watching the clock, jumping at every sound, until dawn finally came. He didn't tell anyone. How could he? "Hey, I think there's a crazy woman on the closed-off 8th floor, but I'm too scared to check." He'd sound insane or incompetent, probably both. The next night, he almost called in sick. But he needed the money. He showed up, determined to ignore the 8th floor entirely. It wasn't his problem. The door was chained. Whatever was up there could stay up there, but at 2 a.m., during his rounds, he couldn't help himself. He went back to the 8th floor stairwell. The door was exactly as he'd left it. Chained, locked, secure. He stood there for 5 minutes. Nothing. No sounds. No footsteps. No singing. Relief washed over him. He'd imagined it. Stress, exhaustion. The creepy atmosphere of a dying hospital. His mind had played tricks. He turned to leave, and that's when he saw it. On the floor, pushed under the door from the other side, barely visible in the gap between door and floor. A photograph. Marcus knelt down, hands shaking, and pulled it free. It was old, faded, probably from the 1970s, based on the color saturation and print quality. It showed a woman, maybe 30, with dark hair and a pleasant smile, holding a young boy with red hair. The boy looked about 7. They were standing in front of a hospital room door. You could see part of the room number, 8__. He flipped the photo over. Written in faded blue ink, "David and me." Before Marcus dropped the photo like it had burned him. Over the next week, he researched the hospital's history. What he found made him seriously consider quitting in 1978. A 7-year-old boy named David Thornton had been admitted to Riverside Medical Center for a routine tonsillectomy. His mother, Carol Ann Thornton, had stayed with him. The surgery was scheduled for Thursday morning. Wednesday night, there was a fire on the 8th floor in the pediatric ward. Electrical malfunction. The fire suppression system failed. The floor was evacuated, but in the chaos, David Thornton and 2 other children didn't make it. They died of smoke inhalation in their rooms. Carol Ann Thornton survived. She was found by firefighters on the stairwell landing between the 7th and 8th floors, trying to break down a door that had jammed shut from the heat. She was screaming her son's name. They had to physically restrain her to get her out of the building. She was admitted to a psychiatric facility 3 days later, after she tried to break back into the hospital, claiming she could hear David crying. She spent the rest of her life in various institutions, never recovering, always insisting her son was still in the hospital, still waiting for her. She died in 1993. Suicide. The 8th floor was closed permanently after the fire. Too much damage, too expensive to repair, and the hospital was already planning to build a new facility eventually. They just sealed it off and forgot about it. Marcus stared at the photograph in his hands. David and me. Before the fire. Before the death. Before the madness. That night, Marcus made a decision. He took a bolt cutter from maintenance, and at 2 a.m., he cut through the chains on the 8th floor door. He had to know. He had to see. The door swung open with a prolonged creak. Beyond was darkness, and the smell of old smoke, still lingering after all these years. Marcus clicked on his flashlight and stepped inside. The hallway was a time capsule of 1978. Faded linoleum floors, vintage nurses' stations, patient rooms with their doors hanging open. Everything was covered in dust and soot. His footsteps left clear prints in the grime. "Hello?" His voice echoed strangely, absorbed by the dead air. No response. He walked down the hallway, shining his light into rooms. Rusted bed frames, broken medical equipment, children's drawings still taped to some walls, their colors faded to ghosts. A teddy bear on a windowsill, its fur matted and burned. He found room 804. The door was closed. Unlike the others, this one looked like someone had tried to claw through it from the inside. Deep gouges in the wood. The handle was blackened from fire. Marcus reached for the handle, and that's when he heard it behind him. The singing. The same lullaby from before, but closer now, so much closer. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." He spun around. At the end of the hallway, silhouetted against the faint light from the stairwell, stood a figure. A woman. Dark hair. She took a step forward. "Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird." Another step. She was limping, he noticed. One leg dragging slightly. And if that mockingbird won't sing. Marcus backed against the door of room 804. His hand found the handle. "Mama's gonna buy you a diamond ring." The woman stepped into the beam of his flashlight, and Marcus's scream caught in his throat. Her face was wrong. Burned. One side of her face was melted, frozen in a permanent expression of anguish. Her dress, a floral print from decades ago, was charred and tattered. She smiled with half a mouth. "Have you seen my son? I can't find him. He's in one of these rooms. He's crying. Can you hear him crying?" And God help him, Marcus could. From behind the door of room 804, he heard it. A child's. Story 3. The passenger, rain drumming steadily. The thing about driving for a rideshare company at night is that you see humanity at its most vulnerable. People leaving hospitals with bad news. Couples arguing after dates gone wrong. Drunk college kids. Workers exhausted after double shifts. And sometimes, late at night, you pick up passengers who make you question reality itself. This is what happened to Jennifer Park on a Tuesday. Night in October. Jennifer had been driving for Uberpool for 2 years. Working Thursday through Sunday nights, 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. She was saving for graduate school, chipping away at her student loans, and the night shift paid the best. She'd learned to navigate the weird, the rude, and the occasionally dangerous with a combination of pleasant professionalism and firm boundaries. She had pepper spray in her coup folder and a dash cam recording everything. She'd never had a serious incident until October 17th. The request came in at 2:47 a.m. A pickup at the corner of Westbrook and 9th Street in an older residential area she knew fairly well. The passenger name was listed as M. Holloway. Destination: Greenlawn Cemetery, about 15 minutes away. Jennifer hesitated. A cemetery at 3 a.m.? But the fare was good, and the address was technically the administrative building at the cemetery entrance, which had a parking lot. Maybe a late shift groundskeeper or security. She accepted the ride. Westbrook and 9th was a quiet corner, dimly lit by a single streetlight. As Jennifer pulled up, she saw a woman standing on the sidewalk. Middle-aged, maybe 50, wearing a long dark coat and carrying a small purse. She looked perfectly normal, respectable even. Relief washed over Jennifer. The woman opened the back door and slid in. "Thank you for picking me up so late," she said. Her voice was cultured, soft, with a slight accent Jennifer couldn't place. "I hope it's not an inconvenience." "Not at all," Jennifer said, pulling away from the curb. "Heading to Greenlawn Cemetery?" "Yes. The administrative building, please." They drove in silence for a few minutes. Jennifer glanced in the rearview mirror occasionally. The woman sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, staring out the window. Something about her stillness was unnerving. Most passengers fidgeted with their phones, looked around, made small talk. This woman could have been a statue. Working late? Jennifer asked, trying to fill the silence. In a manner of speaking, the woman replied, "I'm visiting someone." "At the cemetery? At 3 in the morning?" The woman turned to look at Jennifer in the rearview mirror, and for just a moment, Jennifer felt a chill. The woman's eyes were dark, bottomless. "It's the only time I can visit," she said simply. Jennifer decided not to press further. Grief made people do strange things. Maybe this woman had lost someone and found comfort in nighttime visits. It wasn't her place to judge. They were about 5 minutes from the cemetery when the woman spoke again. "May I ask you a question?" "Sure. Do you believe in second chances?" Jennifer thought about it. "I guess so. Like, do I believe people can change?" "Yeah, mostly." "No," the woman said. "I mean second chances at life itself. If you died, but were given an opportunity to come back, to live again, would you take it? Regardless of the cost?" The question hung in the air, strange and heavy. Jennifer felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. "That's pretty philosophical for 3 a.m. Please, humor me. Would you?" I don't know. I guess it depends on the cost." The woman nodded slowly. "A wise answer. There is always a cost." They turned onto Cemetery Road. The gates of Greenlawn loomed ahead, wrought iron and stone, with the administrative building visible just inside. Jennifer pulled into the parking lot, which was empty except for one other car maintenance vehicle, probably. "Here we are," Jennifer said, putting the car in park. The woman didn't move. "Do you know the history of this cemetery?" She asked. "Not really, no. It's been here since 1847. Over 150,000 people are buried here. Did you know that? 150,000 souls. All those lives. All those stories. All underground, feeding the earth." Jennifer's hand moved toward her pepper spray. The woman's tone had changed, become almost dreamy, distant. "Ma'am, we're here." "Your stop." Yes, of course." The woman reached for the door handle, but paused. "Thank you, Jennifer. You've been very kind. I hope you live a long, full life. I hope you die peacefully, surrounded by people who love you, with no regrets and no unfinished business. That's the best anyone can hope for." She knew Jennifer's name. It was on the app, but something about hearing it spoken made Jennifer's skin crawl. The woman stepped out of the car. But before she closed the door, she leaned back in. "One more thing. In exactly 7 days, you'll receive another ride request. 2:47 a.m., same pickup location. Don't accept it. No matter how good the fare is. Don't accept it. Promise me." What? Why?" "Promise me, Jennifer." "Okay, I promise." The woman smiled, and in the dim interior light, Jennifer saw that her teeth were very white, very perfect. Too perfect. She closed the door and walked toward the cemetery gates. Jennifer sat there for a moment, heart pounding. What the hell was that? She looked at her dash cam, grateful it had recorded everything. She'd have proof that this interaction was as weird as it felt. The woman reached the cemetery gates and kept walking, straight through them. The gates were closed, locked for the night. But the woman passed through the iron bars like they weren't there, like she was made of mist, and disappeared into the darkness beyond. Jennifer's scream caught in her throat. Her hands shook so badly she could barely shift into drive. She peeled out of the parking lot, tires screeching, and didn't slow down until she was back in the well-lit commercial district of downtown Dot. She went straight home, called in sick for the next 3 nights, and spent that time watching and re-watching her dash cam footage. The video showed everything. Her picking up the passenger, the woman getting in, sitting in the back seat. But when Jennifer tried to capture screenshots of the woman's face, they came out blurred, distorted, as if there was some kind of interference. The audio was perfect, every word captured, but the visual of the woman herself was like looking at someone through water. And the end. The woman walking through the gates. On camera, clear as day. She didn't open them. She walked through them. Jennifer filed the footage away and tried to forget about it. She told herself it was a technical glitch, some kind of optical illusion, sleep deprivation. She went back to work after 3 days, but she avoided that area of town. She turned down any fares heading to or near Greenlawn Cemetery. A week later, October 24th, Jennifer was online driving when the request came through. 2:47 a.m. Pickup at the corner of Westbrook and 9th Street. Passenger name, Holloway. Destination, Greenlawn Cemetery. The exact same ride. 7 days later, just as the woman had predicted, Jennifer's blood turned to ice. Her finger hovered over the decline button. But something made her look at the fare. It was high, abnormally high. Surge pricing maybe, but it was showing $147 for a 15-minute ride. She declined. The request immediately came through again. Same passenger, same pickup, same destination. But now the fare had increased to $247. Jennifer declined again, hands shaking. Another request. $347. Decline. $447. Decline. $547. What the fuck? Jennifer whispered. She pulled over to the side of the road. The requests kept coming, the fare climbing each time. $647, $747, $847. She called the Uber Pool support line. "There's something wrong with my app," she told the bored-sounding representative. "I'm getting the same ride request over and over, and the fare keeps increasing. What's the passenger name?" Holloway. A pause. "I'm not seeing any active requests under that name in your area, but it's right here on my screen. Can you send a screenshot?" Jennifer tried, but when she took the screenshot, the image showed her app's home screen with no active requests at all, as if the ride request existed only when she was looking directly at it. "Ma'am, I'm not seeing any issues on our end. Have you tried restarting the app?" Jennifer hung up. The request came through again. $947. She remembered the woman's words. Don't accept it, no matter how good the fare is. But what would happen if she just kept declining? Would the requests stop eventually? Or would they keep coming, the fare climbing into thousands, tens of thousands, tempting her until she broke? $1,047. Jennifer made a decision. She opened her app settings and went offline. Immediately, the requests stopped. The app showed her as unavailable. She let out a breath of relief. But then her phone rang. An unknown number. She declined the call. It rang again immediately. Same unknown number. She declined again. A text message appeared. "Jennifer, please. I need a ride. It's urgent." Another text. "I'll pay anything. Please pick up the phone." Another call. Jennifer turned her phone completely off. For the rest of the night, she drove home in silence, her phone dead and useless in her queue folder. She didn't turn it back on until she was safely in her apartment, doors locked, lights blazing. When she finally powered it on, there were 47 missed calls from the unknown number, 23 text messages, all saying variations of the same thing. Please, I need help. Pick me up. It's been so long. I'm so cold. Please, Jennifer. The last message, sent at 4:03 a.m., simply said, I understand. Thank you for keeping your promise. But someone else won't be as strong as you. And when they come for me, I'll finally be free. I just hope they understand what they've agreed to. Jennifer never drove for a rideshare company again. She deleted the app. Story 4. The recording, rain pattering continues. Audio engineering was Ryan Fletcher's passion long before it became his profession. He'd started recording sounds as a teenager rain on different surfaces, city traffic, birdsong at dawn. He called it field recording, and it had evolved from hobby to obsession to career. Now, at 28, he ran a small but successful sound design company, creating audio for films, podcasts, and video games. His specialty was atmospheric sound, the subtle background noises that made fictional spaces feel real. He had a library of thousands of recordings, meticulously cataloged. Subway Ambience 1, Forest at Night 2, Hospital Corridor 3. Directors loved his work because he captured authenticity that generic sound libraries couldn't match. In November, Ryan was hired to create the soundscape for an indie horror game set in an abandoned psychiatric hospital. The developer wanted genuine institutional atmosphere, the real sound of empty hallways, old equipment, that specific echo you only get in these places. Ryan knew exactly where to go. Harrington State Hospital had been abandoned since 2009, closed due to budget cuts and abuse scandals. It was 3 hours north, in a rural area where the local government hadn't gotten around to demolishing it yet. Exploring abandoned buildings was technically illegal, but Ryan had done it dozens of times. He'd learned which security guards could be persuaded to look the other way, which fences had gaps, which times of day were safest. He arrived at Harrington on a Tuesday afternoon in late November. The building was massive 5 stories of brick and broken windows, surrounded by overgrown grounds and a rusted fence. Ryan found an easy entry point at the north side, where a section of chain link had been cut open, probably by previous urban explorers. Inside, the hospital was a perfect specimen of institutional decay. Long corridors lined with empty rooms, their doors hanging open like mouths. Peeling paint in that specific shade of institutional green. Gurneys and wheelchairs left to rust. Paperwork scattered everywhere, patient files, employee records, maintenance logs, all confidential materials, just left to rot. Ryan spent the first hour setting up his equipment and taking test recordings. The acoustics were perfect. Every footstep echoed beautifully. The wind through broken windows created an ethereal whistle. He recorded the creak of a door in what had been the pharmacy, the drip of water from a broken pipe in a patient bathroom, the buzz of a fluorescent light that somehow still had power. By 4 p.m., the sun was setting, and the hallways were getting dark. Ryan set up his primary recording rig in a nurse's station on the 3rd floor. He had a high-sensitivity microphone, a digital recorder, and a set of headphones that cost more than his car. He was going to do what he called an ambient capture. Just set the equipment running and record an hour of pure environmental sound. Whatever happened naturally. Wind, settling structure, distant traffic, anything. He pressed record, checked his levels, and settled into a broken office chair to wait. For the first 20 minutes, the recording was exactly what he'd hoped for. Subtle creaks, wind, the building breathing. Perfect. Then he heard it in his headphones. A sound that didn't fit. A voice. Distant, muffled, but definitely a voice. Human. speaking or maybe singing, too far away to tell. Ryan's heart rate picked up. Was someone else in the building? Security? Another explorer? He stayed still, listening. The voice continued for about 30 seconds, then stopped. Ryan rewound the recording, listening carefully. There it was, captured clearly on the digital file. A woman's voice, speaking in a rhythmic pattern. Not singing. More like chanting? Reciting something? He checked his watch. 4:37 p.m. The recording was still running. He decided to let it continue, but stay alert. If someone was in the building, he'd need to be careful. Property owners sometimes hired private security, and they weren't always friendly to TRESPASSERS. 4:51 p.m. The voice came again. This time closer. And clearer. Ryan could make out words. 47, 48, 49, 50. A woman, counting, slowly, deliberately. 51, 52, 53. Ryan stood up, turning in a slow circle. The voice seemed to be coming from down the hallway, from the west wing. 54, 55, 56. He should leave. Every instinct told him to grab his equipment and get out. But another part of him, the sound designer, the artist, was fascinated. This was authentic. This was real. Unknown voices in an abandoned psychiatric hospital? The game developers would lose their minds. This would make the game's soundscape truly unique. He checked his recorder. Still running, still capturing everything. 63, 64, 65. Against his better judgment, Ryan picked up his portable recorder and followed the voice. He walked down the third-floor hallway, his footsteps echoing, the voice growing slightly louder. 71, 72, 73. He reached a corner and turned. The hallway here was darker, with fewer intact windows. Most of the doors were closed, unlike the rest of the floor. 79, 80, 81. The voice was coming from behind one of the closed doors. Room 317. Ryan stood outside it, recorder in hand, capturing everything. 87, 88, 89. He reached for the door handle, then stopped. What was he doing? He didn't know who or what was in there. This was stupid. 95, 96, 97. The voice stopped. Silence. Ryan stood frozen, hand extended toward the door handle, not touching it. Then, from inside the room, a different voice. Also female, but different. Younger. Ready or not, here I come. The door handle turned from the inside. Ryan stumbled backward. The door swung open slowly, revealing a dark room. Empty. No one inside. Just an old hospital room with a rusted bed frame and a broken window. He turned and ran. He didn't care about looking professional or brave. He ran back to the nurse's station, grabbed his primary equipment, not even bothering to pack it properly, and ran for the exit. He didn't stop until he was back at his car. Doors locked, engine running. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely grip the steering wheel. Only when he was on the highway, 20 miles from Harrington, did he start to rationalize. Old buildings had strange acoustics. Sound could travel in weird ways, echo oddly. Maybe there were homeless people inside, or local kids playing around. The door had probably been left open, and he just thought he saw it opening. Adrenaline and fear had made him imagine things not by the time he got home. He'd almost convinced himself. Then he listened to the recordings. Every sound was there. The counting. The second voice. Ready or not, here I come. Clear as day. But there was more. In the background, underneath those two voices, if you listened carefully with good headphones, there were others. Dozens of others. Whispering, murmuring, like a crowd speaking all at once very quietly. Ryan listened to the full hour of ambient recording from the nurse's station. The voices appeared and disappeared throughout, sometimes counting, sometimes playing, sometimes singing, sometimes screaming. At the 47-minute mark, there was a sound that made Ryan's blood run cold. Footsteps, multiple sets, walking through the hallways. And voices, clearer now. Where is he? I can't see him. Is he hiding? We're supposed to find him. It's his turn. He has to play. Everyone has to play. Those are the rules. The footsteps came closer to the recorder. Ryan could hear them approaching the nurse's station, where he'd been sitting, where his equipment had been running, recording everything. Then, a voice. So close it could have been speaking directly into the microphone. There you are. A pause. Oh, he's not here. Just his machine. Where did he go? He ran away. That's cheating. We don't like cheaters. Should we follow him? A long silence. Just breathing sounds. Multiple people breathing right next to the microphone. Then. No, he's too far now. He left the game. But he took something with him. He took our voices. He put them in his machine. That's not allowed. When he listens to us, we can hear him too. Fair is fair. He took something from our home, so now his home is ours too. The recording continued for another 13 minutes. Just silence and the ambient sounds of the hospital. Ryan had grabbed the recorder and left at the 51-minute mark, which meant these voices had been recorded after he'd fled. He should have deleted the files immediately. Every rational bone in his body told him to destroy the recordings and forget this had ever happened. But he couldn't. They were too good, too real, too perfect for the horror game. He delivered edited versions of the recordings to the game developer, stripping out the most disturbing voice sections but keeping the atmospheric elements. The developer was thrilled. This is exactly what we wanted. How did you capture this authenticity? Ryan didn't tell him, but he kept the original files, stored them in a folder labeled Harrington Full Raw. Sometimes, late at night, he'd listen to them again, trying to figure out what he'd actually captured. That's when he started noticing the other sounds, when he played the Harrington recordings on his studio monitors. His recording equipment would pick up strange interference, voices very faint that weren't in the original files. Like the recording was continuing somehow, capturing new sounds that shouldn't be there. He'd hear his name sometimes. Ryan whispered, soon, called out. Always his name. Then his apartment started making noises. At night, he'd hear footsteps in his hallway. Children's laughter. Counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. He set up recording equip. Story 5. The painting, Gentle Rain with Occasional Thunder. Antique stores are full of items with history's furniture that's been in families for generations. Jewelry that's witnessed marriages and deaths. Books that have passed through countless hands. Most of these histories are mundane, unremarkable. But occasionally, an object carries something darker with it. Something that shouldn't be bought, sold, or owned. Something that, once acquired, cannot easily be released. Eleanor. Chun learned this lesson when she bought the painting. She'd been browsing the antique shop on Maple Street on a gray Saturday afternoon in March. The shop was one of those cluttered, dusty places that seemed to exist outside of time-packed floor-to-ceiling with Victorian furniture. Art Deco lamps, vintage clothing, and miscellaneous curiosities. Eleanor loved places like this. She was furnishing her first apartment after finishing graduate school, and she preferred items with character over modern minimalism. The painting was hanging in the back corner, partially hidden behind a wardrobe. Eleanor almost didn't notice it, but as she was squeezing past to look at a vintage desk, she caught sight of it and stopped. It was a portrait. Oil on canvas, maybe 2 feet by 3 feet, in an ornate gilded frame that had seen better days. The subject was a young woman, perhaps in her late 20s, wearing a high-necked Victorian dress in deep green. She had dark hair pulled back severely, and pale skin that seemed to glow against the dark background. But it was her eyes that caught Eleanor's attention. They were dark, intense, and they seemed to follow you. The painting had that quality. No matter where you stood, the woman appeared to be looking directly at you. You like that one? The shop owner, an elderly man named Harold, had appeared beside her. "It's striking," Eleanor said. "Is it expensive?" Harold frowned. "I'll be honest with you. I've been trying to get rid of that thing for 3 years. I'll let you have it for $50, frame included. Hell, I'll drop it to 40 if you take it today." Eleanor was surprised. The frame alone looked like it was worth more than $40. "Why so cheap? Is there something wrong with it?" Harold hesitated. "It's just, people don't seem to like it. I've sold it 4 times now, and every time it comes back. Different people, different reasons. One woman said it gave her nightmares. A man said his dog wouldn't stop barking at it. Another woman just returned it after 2 days with no explanation. And the last person?" Harold trailed off. "What?" "The last person who bought it died. Heart attack. His daughter brought the painting back when she was settling his estate. Sighed she wanted nothing to do with it." Eleanor looked at the painting again. The woman stared back, her expression unreadable. It was just a painting. A creepy painting, sure, but just paint and canvas. She didn't believe in curses or haunted objects. And for $40, it was a steal. "I'll take it," she said. Harold looked relieved and worried at the same time. "All right. But look, if you change your mind, you can return it any time. No questions asked. I mean it." Eleanor carried the painting to her car, carefully wrapped in brown paper. She lived in a studio apartment on the 4th floor of a converted warehouse building. The place was small, but had good light and high ceilings, perfect for displaying art. She hung the painting on the wall opposite her bed, where she could see it from her desk and kitchen area. It looked perfect there, adding a touch of Victorian Gothic elegance to her modern space. For the first 3 days, nothing unusual happened. Eleanor went about her routine working from home as a freelance copywriter. Video calling with friends, cooking, watching TV. The painting was just a painting. On the 4th night, she had the first dream. In the dream, she was standing in a large Victorian house. The decor was ornate, old-fashioned, lit by gaslight and candles. She was walking through corridors, looking for something, though she didn't know what. She came to a door and opened it. Inside was a bedroom, and in the bedroom was the woman from the painting. But she was alive, moving, real. She sat at a vanity, brushing her dark hair, watching Eleanor in the mirror. "You brought me into your home," the woman said. "How kind of you." Eleanor tried to speak, but no sound came out. The woman turned from the mirror to face her directly. "I've been waiting for someone like you. Someone who would keep me. Look at me, appreciate me. I get so lonely, being returned again and again. But you're different, aren't you, Eleanor? You're going to let me stay." Eleanor woke up gasping. Her bedroom was dark, but across the room she could see the painting. In the shadows, the woman's eyes seemed to gleam. She turned on the light. Just a painting. Just a dream. But the next night, the dream came again. This time, Eleanor was in the Victorian house again, and the woman was showing her around. "This was my home," she said. "I lived here with my husband. I was happy here. Until I wasn't." She led Eleanor to a different room. A nursery. Empty except for a cradle. "I wanted children," the woman said. "He didn't. We argued. One night, he became violent. She touched her throat. He strangled me. Right here. In this house. Then he disposed of my body and told everyone I'd run away with a lover. No one questioned it. Women leave their husbands sometimes, after all. I'm sorry, Eleanor heard herself say. He had my portrait painted from a photograph before he killed me. Guilt, perhaps, or a trophy. Either way, the portrait remained after I was gone. And I attached myself to it. The only thing left of my existence. The only proof I was ever real. Eleanor woke up. It was 3:47 a.m. She stared at the painting in the darkness. The next day, Eleanor researched the painting's history. She went back to Harold's shop and asked where he'd gotten it. Estate sale about 6 years ago, Harold said. Old house in the historic district was being cleared out. The house was from 1887 originally. You want the address? Eleanor did. She found the house. It had been converted into offices now. She spoke to the building manager, asked about the history. After some digging, he found records. The house had been built by a man named Thomas Whitmore. He and his wife Catherine had lived there from 1887 to 1889, at which point Catherine disappeared. Thomas claimed she'd left him. He lived in the house alone until his death in 1923. Catherine Whitmore was never heard from again. No divorce was ever filed. No body was ever found. Eleanor found an old photograph in the local historical society's archives. Thomas and Catherine Whitmore, photographed in 1888. Catherine's face was the face in the painting. Same dark hair, same intense eyes, same high-necked green dress. That night, Eleanor didn't want to sleep in her apartment. She stayed at a friend's place, making excuses about maintenance issues. But even away from the painting, the dreams came. Catherine appeared to her. You can't run from me. I'm not in that house anymore. I'm not even really in the painting. I'm with you now, Eleanor. You looked at me. You took me home. You invited me in. And now I can't leave. What do you want from me? Eleanor asked. I want to be remembered. I want my story told. I want justice. Thomas Whitmore murdered me and lived free for 34 more years. He died in his sleep, peacefully, with no consequences for what he did. That's not fair. That's not right. But he's dead now. What can I do? Catherine smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. You can take my place. Eleanor woke up screaming. She went back to her apartment the next morning, determined to return the painting to Harold. But when she opened her door, she stopped cold. The painting had moved. She'd hung it on the north wall. Now it was on the east wall, above her bed, positioned so that it would be the first thing she saw when she woke up. Eleanor lived alone. No one had a key to her apartment. The door had been locked. With shaking hands, she took the painting down. She wrapped it back up in brown paper, not looking at Catherine's face. She carried it down to her car, but when she got to Harold's shop, it was closed. Not just closed for the day permanently. A sign in the window read, Harold's Antiques closed. Owner deceased. Estate being settled. Eleanor felt her stomach drop. Harold had been fined 5 days ago. She called the number on the sign. Harold's nephew answered. Yes, Harold had died. Sudden heart attack. Just like the last person who'd bought the painting. Eleanor drove to the city dump. She was going to throw the painting away, get rid of it completely. But as she approached the trash compactor, something stopped her. A feeling. A voice in her head, soft and insistent. You can't throw me away. I'm a person. I'm a victim. I deserve better than this. Eleanor stood there, holding the wrapped painting, tears streaming down her face. I don't know what to do, she whispered. That night, the painting somehow ended up back in her apartment, hanging in its original spot. Eleanor hadn't brought it back. She'd left it in her car, locked in the trunk. But there it was, on her wall, as if it had never left. She stopped fighting after that. What was the point? Catherine was there, in her apartment, in her dreams, in her mind. Always present. Always watching. Eleanor started talking to the painting. Out loud, when she was alone. "What do you want me to do?" She'd ask. "How can I help you?" In her dreams, Catherine would answer. "Find my body. Give me a proper burial. Tell the world what Thomas did. Make them remember me." Eleanor began to research obsessively. She read about the Whitmore house, its construction, its layout. She studied old property maps. She made inquiries with the current building owners about accessing the basement, the foundation. After weeks of research and for a moment longer, then went back to her apartment. That night, she mentioned the interaction to her friend Jake during their weekly video call. "Sounds like you've got a weird neighbor," Jake said. "Every apartment building has one. Just ignore him." But Amanda couldn't ignore it. Something felt wrong. Over the next week, she paid closer attention to apartment 4C. She started keeping a log of sounds, times, anything unusual. She noticed patterns. Footsteps every night between 2 and 4 a.m. The sound of running water around 3 p.m. daily. Music sometimes, always old songs from decades past. But never voices, never conversation, never any indication of visitors or phone calls. And there was something else. A smell. Faint, but present in the hallway outside 4C. Chemical. Antiseptic, like a hospital. Amanda decided to do some research. She went to the county records office and looked up the building's history. The building had been constructed in 1923, originally as a hotel, converted to apartments in 1967. She found the rental records for 4C. Arthur Garrett had been listed as the tenant since 2004. Before that, the apartment had been vacant for 3 years. Before that, the records became spotty, various names, short rental periods, lots of turnover. She found something else, too. 3 different tenants in 4C between 1985 and 2001 had died. 1 suicide, 1 accidental overdose, 1 unexplained death in sleep. All single men, all between 40 and 60 years old. That seemed unusual. Amanda wondered if there was something wrong with the apartment itself. Carbon monoxide, mold, some environmental hazard. She decided to talk to Diane again. This time, she was more direct. "I'm concerned about Mr. Garrett," Amanda said. "I think something might be wrong. I hear him at night, but I've never seen him. He won't answer his door. I'm worried about him." Diane's expression became guarded. "Mr. Garrett is fine. I check on him regularly. When was the last time you actually saw him?" A pause. "I respect my tenant's privacy, Amanda. If you have a specific concern, a safety issue, a violation of the lease, I'll address it. But I'm not going to invade someone's privacy just because they're reclusive. What if something's happened to him? What if he's hurt?" "He's not." "I would know." "How?" Diane didn't answer, just gave Amanda a look that ended the conversation. But that night, Amanda made a decision. She was going to see inside apartment 4C, one way or another. She needed to know what was going on. At 2 a.m., when the footsteps started, Amanda crept out into the hallway and pressed her ear against the door of 4C. The footsteps were clear, pacing back and forth. Then they stopped, directly on the other side of the door. So close she could hear breathing. "Mr. Garrett?" She whispered. "Are you there?" The breathing stopped. Then the voice again. Quiet, strained. "Why can't you leave me alone? I'm worried about you. When was the last time you left your apartment? Have you seen a doctor? Do you need help? I need you to stop, please, before it's too late." "Too late for what?" "Before you end up like me." A chill ran down Amanda's spine. What does that mean? But Mr. Garrett didn't answer. The footsteps resumed, moving away from the door, fading into the apartment. Amanda went back to her apartment, but she couldn't sleep. Before it's too late. Before you end up like me. What did that mean? The next day, she did something she wasn't proud of. She waited until she saw Diane leave the building, then used a lockpick set she'd ordered online. She'd watched YouTube videos on how to pick simple residential locks. It took her 20 minutes and multiple failed attempts, but eventually, the lock to 4C clicked open. Amanda pushed the door open slowly. "Mr. Garrett?" "I'm coming in." store vintage old, but genuinely old, like it hadn't been replaced since the 1970s. A rotary phone on a side table, a TV with dials instead of buttons, furniture in styles from decades past, and everything was covered in dust. Thick dust, like no one had disturbed anything in years. But that was impossible. She'd heard footsteps just hours ago. Mr. Garrett? Her voice echoed strangely in the space. She walked through the apartment. Kitchen old appliances, dishes in the sink covered in dust, and dried food that looked years old. Bathroom a rust-stained tub, a mirror so dirty she could barely see her reflection. Bedroom Amanda stopped in the doorway of the bedroom. There was a bed, and on the bed was a shape, a body covered by a blanket. Her heart pounding, Amanda approached. She reached out with a shaking hand and pulled back the blanket. The body of a man, elderly, gaunt, dressed in clothes from decades past. His skin was gray, mummified. He'd been dead for a very long time. Amanda stumbled backward, hand over her mouth, suppressing a scream. She pulled out her phone to call 911, but before she could dial, she heard it. Footsteps. Behind her. In the apartment. She spun around. No one was there. But the footsteps continued, pacing in the living room, back and forth, back and forth, just like she'd heard through the wall. Who's there? Amanda's voice was barely a whisper. The footsteps stopped. A figure materialized in the doorway of the bedroom. Translucent, like smoke, but clearly the shape of a man. Elderly, wearing the same clothes as the corpse on the bed. Arthur Garrett. Or what was left of him. His face was gaunt, eyes sunken. When he spoke, his voice was the same strained whisper she'd heard through the door. I told you to leave me alone. I told you. Why didn't you listen? Amanda backed against the wall. You're dead. How long have you been dead? I don't know. Years. Many years. Time doesn't work the same for me anymore. I died here, alone, and no one found me. And then I couldn't leave. I've been trapped here, in this apartment, dying over and over. Waking up each night at 2 a.m. When my heart stopped, reliving my last hours, trying to call for help, pacing, panicking, dying again at 4 a.m. Every night. The same loop, forever. Why didn't anyone find you? Diane said she checks on you. Arthur's ghost laughed bitterly. Diane sees what she wants to see. The rent is paid automatically from my account, has been for years. As long as the money comes, she doesn't ask questions. And the building is old. People hear things. They assume I'm alive. Assume I'm just private. No one checks. No one see. Story 7. The Call. Rain with occasional thunder rumbling. Working for a crisis hotline requires emotional strength, professional boundaries, and the ability to remain calm in situations where others might panic. Maya Rodriguez had all of these qualities, which is why she'd been a volunteer for the Hopeline Crisis Center for 3 years, taking calls from people in their darkest moments. The training had been extensive. How to de-escalate. How to listen without judgment. How to assess danger levels. How to connect callers with resources. Maya had talked dozens of people through suicidal crises, domestic violence situations, and mental health emergencies. She was good at her job. She cared deeply, but knew how to separate work from her personal life. Until the night she got the call from Daniel Dot. It came in on a Thursday at 11:47 p.m. Maya was working the overnight shift, alone in the small office the hotline operated from. Most volunteers worked in pairs, but there weren't enough volunteers for overnight coverage, and Maya had always been comfortable alone. The phone rang. She answered with her standard greeting. Hopeline Crisis Center. This is Maya. How can I help you tonight? A male voice, young, maybe early 20s. I don't know if you can help. I think it might be too late. Maya settled into crisis mode. Keep them talking. Assess the situation. Build rapport. It's never too late to talk. Can you tell me your name? Daniel. Hi, Daniel. I'm Maya. What's going on tonight? What made you call? I'm going to die tonight. I can feel it. I know it. And I'm scared. Are you thinking about hurting yourself, Daniel? No, I'm not suicidal. But I'm going to die anyway. I don't know how to explain it. I just know. Maya had heard variations of this before: paranoid delusions, anxiety attacks that felt like premonitions, drug-induced panic. Can you tell me more about this feeling? When did it start? 3 days ago. I started having dreams. The same dream every night. I'm in my apartment, and I hear knocking on my door. I open it, and there's a man standing there. He doesn't say anything. He just looks at me. And then I feel this pain in my chest, and I can't breathe, and I collapse and I'm dying, and the man is still standing there, just watching me die. And then I wake up. That sounds like a very frightening dream. But Daniel, dreams aren't premonitions. Our brains process fears and anxieties through dreams. Have you been under a lot of stress lately? You don't understand. The first night I had the dream, I thought the same thing: it's just a bad dream. But the second night, the dream was longer. The man came in. He walked around my apartment, looking at my things. And I could hear him thinking. I could hear his thoughts. He was thinking about how easy it would be, how no one would know, how I'm alone and no one checks on me for days at a time. And you had this dream a third time tonight? Yes, but this time the dream didn't end when I died. This time I stayed dead, and I watched him go through my apartment. I watched him take my laptop, my phone, my wallet. I watched him leave and close the door behind him, and I was just lying there on the floor, dead, and no one came. Not for 3 days. Until my landlord came because I missed rent. That's how they found my body. And the police couldn't figure out who killed me because there was no sign of forced entry, no evidence, nothing. Just me, dead on my floor. Maya kept her voice calm. Daniel, I know these dreams feel very real, but they're not predictions. They're anxiety manifesting. Have you been diagnosed with any anxiety disorders? Are you taking any medications? I'm not crazy. I know how this sounds. But the man from my dreams is real. I looked out my apartment window today, and I saw him, standing across the street, just standing there, looking up at my building. The same man. Exactly the same. Same clothes, same face, everything. Did you call the police? And tell them what? That I dreamed about a man, and then saw someone who looked like him on a public street. They'd think I'm insane. You probably think I'm insane. I don't think you're insane, Daniel. I think you're very frightened, and I want to help you. Where are you right now? I'm in my apartment. I've locked all the doors and windows. I have a chair pushed against the front door. I have a knife from my kitchen. I'm not going to sleep tonight. If I don't sleep, I can't have the dream. And if I can't have the dream, maybe it won't come true. Daniel, sleep deprivation can make anxiety and paranoia worse. You're making yourself more vulnerable, not less. It's almost midnight. In the dream, he knocks on the door at 12:13 a.m. Exactly 12:13. Every time. That's in 26 minutes. If I can make it past 12:13, maybe I'll be safe. Maybe the dream will break. Maya thought quickly. The protocol was to keep callers on the line as long as they needed, but this situation was escalating. Daniel was barricading himself in his apartment, armed with a knife, in a paranoid state. If police did a wellness check, this could end badly. Daniel, I'll stay on the phone with you. We'll get through 12:13 together, okay? And then we'll talk about next steps. Getting you some professional help, someone to talk to about the anxiety. Does that sound all right? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I know I sound crazy. You don't sound crazy. You sound scared. It's okay to be scared. Let's just talk. Tell me about yourself. What do you do for work? Daniel talked. He was a freelance graphic designer, worked from home mostly. He'd moved to the city 6 months ago, didn't know many people yet. His family lived across the country. He'd been meaning to make more social connections, but kept putting it off. Maya listened, asked questions, kept him engaged. She glanced at the clock. 12:07 a.m. What's your apartment like? She asked. Small, studio. It's on the 3rd floor. One window that faces the street, one that faces the alley. The door has a deadbolt and a chain, but they feel flimsy. Like anyone could kick through if they really wanted to. 12:10 a.m. Daniel, you're doing great. Just keep talking to me. Tell me about your family. My mom calls every Sunday. My dad died when I was 12. I have a younger sister, Emma. She's in college. I should call them more. If I die tonight, the last conversation I had with my mom was about whether I'd remembered to file my taxes on time. That's a stupid last conversation. 12:13 a.m. They both fell silent, listening. Maya could hear Daniel's breathing through the phone, quick and shallow. Seconds passed. 10, 20, 30. Daniel? Maya said softly. It's 12:14. Nothing happened. She heard Daniel let out a shaky breath. Oh my God. Okay. Maybe you're right. Maybe it was just anxiety. Maybe a knock. 3 solid raps. Maya heard it clearly through the phone. Someone was knocking on Daniel's door. No, Daniel whispered. No. He's here. Maya, he's here. Exactly like the dream. Daniel, stay calm. Don't open the door. Who is it? Maya raised her voice slightly, hoping whoever was on the other side of the door might hear through the phone. Another knock. 3 more raps. Daniel, ask who it is. Who's there? Daniel called out, his voice cracking. No answer. Another knock. Call the police, Daniel. Right now. Call 911. I can't. If I hang up with you, I'll be alone. Please don't make me be alone. Maya made a decision. Daniel, what's your address? I'm going to call the police for you on another line. Give me your full address. He gave it. Maya used her cell phone to call 911 while keeping Daniel on the main line. She explained the situation. A man potentially in danger. Someone at his door. Possible intruder. Send units immediately. Daniel, police are on their way. Don't open the door. Just wait. The knocking continued. 3 raps. Pause. 3 more raps. Again and again. Persistent. He's not going away, Daniel said. Just like the dream. He just keeps knocking. The police will be there soon. Just hold on. Minutes passed. The knocking continued. Then suddenly it stopped. He stopped, Daniel whispered. Why did he stop? Maybe he left. Maybe he heard me on the phone. Just stay where you are. Maya, I'm looking through the peephole. There's no one there. The hallway is empty. Good. That's good. The police should be there any minute. Wait, I hear something. A scraping sound. At the window. The one facing the alley. Maya's blood ran cold. You're on the 3rd floor. There's no fire escape? No, there's nothing. How could someone be at the window? Daniel, get away from the window. Go to the bathroom. Lock yourself in the bathroom. I can see him. Oh God, I can see him. He's outside the window. He's just floating there. That's not possible. How is that possible? Daniel, listen to me. He's smiling at me. His face, it's exactly like the dream. He knows. He knows he's going to kill me. I can see it in his eyes. Daniel, get to the bathroom now. A crash. The sound of breaking glass. Daniel screamed. Daniel! Daniel! Sounds of struggle. Furniture overturning. Daniel making choked, gasping sounds. The phone clattered to the floor. Daniel! Maya was screaming now. Protocol forgotten. More sounds. Fighting. Impact. And then a horrible, wet sound. Silence. Maya sat frozen, the phone pressed to her ear, listening to nothing. In the distance, through the phone, she could hear sirens approaching. Then, a new sound. Breathing. Someone had picked up the phone. Hello? Maya whispered. A man's voice. Calm, pleasant. Hello, Maya. I've heard so much about you. Daniel spoke very highly of you in his final moments. Who is this? What did you do to Daniel? You know what I did. Daniel told you. He told you exactly what would happen. And it happened. Just like the dream. He tried to change it. He tried so hard. But you can't change what's already written. The police are coming. They're almost there. Story 8. The Mirror. Steady Rain with Thunder. Antique mirrors have always carried a certain mystique. Reflecting generations of faces, witnessing moments both joyful and tragic, they seem to hold memories within their silvered surfaces. Most people find this idea romantic, even comforting. But sometimes, a mirror reflects something more than light and image. Sometimes, it reflects what shouldn't be seen. This is what Lisa Brennan discovered when she inherited her great-aunt's mirror. Lisa's great-aunt, Margaret, had died at 93, and Lisa had been named in the will. Most of Margaret's estate was divided among multiple relatives. But Lisa specifically received the full-length mirror from the master bedroom. In its original frame, Lisa vaguely remembered the mirror from childhood visits. It was Victorian, ornate, with a heavy wooden frame carved with ivy and roses. The glass was old, slightly cloudy, with that wavy quality that antique mirrors have. It was beautiful, in an old-fashioned way, and Lisa was pleased to have it. The mirror was delivered to Lisa's townhouse on a Saturday afternoon. 2 moving men carried it up to her bedroom and mounted it on the wall according to her instructions, positioned so she could see it from her bed. That night, Lisa stood in front of the mirror, examining her reflection in the antique glass. The slight distortion was interesting, softening her features, making her look almost ethereal. She smiled at herself, turned off the light, and went to bed. At 3:33 a.m., Lisa woke suddenly, completely. The kind of waking where you're instantly alert, no grogginess, heart already racing though you don't know why. The room was dark, except for faint streetlight coming through the curtains. Lisa lay still, trying to figure out what had woken her. And then she saw the mirror. There was light coming from the mirror. Not reflected light, the mirror itself seemed to be glowing faintly. The glass illuminated from within. Lisa sat up slowly, staring. As she watched, the glow grew brighter, and she could see something. A shape in the mirror. Not a reflection of her room, but something else. A different space. She should have looked away. Should have left the room. Should have covered the mirror with a sheet. But curiosity paralyzed her. The image in the mirror became clearer. It was a room, but not her room. Old-fashioned furniture. Wallpaper with a floral pattern. Gas lamps on the walls providing flickering light. And in the room, a woman, wearing a long white nightgown, her hair loose and dark. She was standing with her back to the mirror, looking at something Lisa couldn't see. Then the woman turned around. and she was looking directly at Lisa, through the mirror. Her eyes locked on Lisa's. The woman's mouth opened, and though Lisa heard nothing, she could see the woman was screaming. Lisa scrambled out of bed, stumbled across the room, and turned on the light. The mirror immediately returned to normal, just her own startled reflection and her bedroom behind her. She stood there, breathing hard, staring at the mirror. Just a dream, she told herself. She'd been asleep, had a nightmare. The mirror was just the subject, because it was new, and her subconscious had focused on it. But her heart knew she hadn't been asleep. She'd been wide awake the next morning. Lisa tried to rationalize what she'd seen. Maybe it was a hallucination brought on by sleep paralysis. Maybe she'd been more tired than she realized. Maybe the streetlight had created an optical illusion. She went about her Sunday routine, but she kept glancing at the mirror. In daylight, it looked perfectly normal. Beautiful, even. Just an antique mirror. That night, Lisa considered covering it but felt foolish. She was a 34-year-old data analyst, not a superstitious child. She got into bed, turned off the light, and tried to sleep at 3:33 a.m. She woke again. And again. The mirror was glowing this time. The scene was clearer, as if the connection was stronger. The same Victorian room, but now Lisa could see more detail. A bed with an ornate headboard. A vanity with bottles and brushes. And the woman. She was sitting on the bed now, facing the mirror. Facing Lisa. Her face was pale, gaunt. Her hair hung limply. She looked exhausted, desperate. She reached out toward the mirror, toward Lisa, her mouth forming words. Lisa couldn't hear, but she could read the lips. "Help me, please help me." "I don't understand," Lisa whispered to the mirror. "Who are you?" The woman became more agitated. She stood up, came closer to her side of the mirror, so close Lisa could see details of her face. She had bruises on her neck, finger marks, like someone had choked her. She pressed her hands against the glass from her side, and Lisa could have sworn she felt the temperature in her room drop. The woman's mouth formed words again. This time, Lisa caught some of them. "Trapped. Can't get out. He locked me in. Please, please help. Who locked you in? Where are you?" The woman pointed. Not at Lisa, but at something in Lisa's room. Lisa turned to look. The woman was pointing at the mirror itself. At the frame, Lisa turned back. The woman was fading now, the image growing dimmer. She looked panicked, desperate, reaching out. And then the glow died completely, and the mirror showed only Lisa's dark bedroom. Lisa turned on every light in her townhouse and didn't sleep the rest of the night. In the morning, exhausted and frightened, Lisa decided to research the mirror. Her great-aunt had owned it for decades, but where had it come from originally? She started going through the papers from Margaret's estate, looking for any documentation about the mirror. She found it in a folder labeled Household Inventory, a purchase receipt from 1968 when Margaret had bought it from an estate sale. The estate sale had been for a house in Thornton Park, belonging to a family named Carrington. Lisa spent hours online, digging through historical records, obituaries, news archives. The Carrington family had lived in Thornton Park from 1889 to 1932. The house had been built by Thomas Carrington, a successful merchant, and his wife, Catherine Carrington. Lisa found a photograph in the Historical Society's online archives. A formal portrait from 1890, dark hair, pale skin, the same face she'd seen in the mirror. According to the records, Catherine Carrington had died in 1894 at age 27. The cause of death was listed as pneumonia, but there was a notation Lisa found strange. Catherine had died at home, in her bedroom, and it was several days before the body was discovered. Even though her husband and servants were in the house, Lisa kept digging. She found something else, a brief news article from 1894. Just 3 lines long. The death of Mrs. Catherine Carrington, wife of merchant Thomas Carrington, has raised questions among neighbors. Mrs. Carrington was said to have been in good health prior to her sudden seclusion. Mr. Carrington has declined to comment. And then, in an archived gossip column from 1895, a year after Catherine's death, it is whispered in certain circles that the late Mrs. Catherine Carrington was not a victim of illness, but of her husband's jealous temperament. Mr. Carrington, now remarried, maintains his late wife's death was natural. But those who knew the couple recall frequent arguments and Mrs. Carrington's increasing isolation in the months before her demise. Lisa felt sick, trapped. He locked me in. Catherine hadn't died of pneumonia. Thomas Carrington had locked her in her bedroom and left her there. To starve? To die of thirst? And then he'd claimed she'd died of illness and buried her quickly, before anyone could ask too many questions. And the mirror had been in that bedroom. The mirror had been there when Catherine died. Somehow, some part of her had been trapped in it, just as she'd been trapped in that room. That night, Lisa stood in front of the mirror before bed. "Catherine," she said, feeling ridiculous but determined, "I know who you are. I know what happened to you. I don't know how to help you, but I'll try. Please, if you can hear me, give me a sign." She waited. Nothing. The mirror reflected only her room dot at 3:33 a.m. Lisa woke to the glowing mirror. Catherine was there, closer than ever, her face filling the mirror. She looked directly at Lisa and spoke. This time, Lisa could hear her dot. It wasn't sound, exactly. It was like the words appeared directly in Lisa's mind, bypassing her ears entirely. "You can see me. You can hear me. Finally, I've been waiting so long. Decades in your time, though time means nothing here. I tried to reach others, your aunt, others before her, but they couldn't see. They'd glimpse me sometimes in reflections, in dreams, but never clearly. But you see me? You hear me. You can help me. How? How can I help you? Break the mirror. Break it and break the trap. Release me. Let me move on. I've been here so long, trapped in this glass, watching the world through reflections, unable to interact, unable to leave. Thomas trapped me in life and trapped me in death. But you can free me, please." Lisa stared at the beautiful Victorian mirror, the ornate frame, the antique glass. It was worth thousands of dollars. And it had been her great-aunt's, but Catherine. "I'll do it," Lisa said. "Tomorrow. When it's light. I promise." Catherine smiled, the first time Lisa had seen her smile. "Thank you. Thank you. Finally, I can rest." The glow faded. Lisa lay back down, but didn't sleep. She'd break the mirror in the morning, free Catherine. And this would all be over. But when morning came, something stopped Lisa. She stood in front of the mirror, hammer in hand, prepared to shatter the glass. But she hesitated. Breaking the mirror felt wrong. It was a family heirloom. It was valuable. And what if Catherine was lying? What if breaking the mirror wouldn't release her, but do something worse? What if this wasn't Catherine Carrington? Story 9. The video, Rain Pattering Gently. The internet is full of strange content. Videos that exist in dark corners, shared on obscure forums, passed between people who seek out disturbing media. Most of it is fake horror fiction, creepypasta, elaborate hoaxes designed to frighten and fascinate. But occasionally, something real slips through. Something that shouldn't exist. Something that watching changes you. Kevin Walsh was a moderator for an online horror community. Our True Horror, dedicated to finding and cataloging genuinely disturbing content. He'd been moderating for 2 years and had seen everything: real crime scene photos, accident footage, medical procedures, cartel violence. He'd developed a strong stomach and a skeptical mind. 99% of the cursed videos and real haunted footage posted to the subreddit were laughably fake. But in October, a user named UDeepArchive posted something different. The post was simple: "Found this on an old hard drive from an estate sale. Don't know what it is. Can't explain it. Watch at your own risk. Not fake." Attached was a video file hosted on an obscure file-sharing site. The video was titled 2004_7_23_basement_recording.avi. Kevin downloaded it, expecting another blurry, ghost caught on camera video. He pressed play. The video was poor quality, clearly recorded on an old camcorder. It showed a basement, unfinished concrete walls, exposed pipes, a boiler in the corner. The timestamp in the corner read July 23, 2004 to 14 The camera was stationary, placed on a tripod or shelf, pointing at the center of the room. For the first 30 seconds, nothing happened. Just an empty basement. Then someone walked into frame. A man, maybe 40 years old, wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt. He stood in the center of the basement, facing the camera. He didn't say anything, just stared directly into the lens. Kevin watched, waiting for something to happen. Jump scare? Some kind of effect? The man's expression slowly changed. His neutral face became fearful, then terrified. His eyes widened. His mouth opened. But he wasn't looking at the camera anymore. He was looking at something off screen, to the right, something the camera wasn't pointed at. He backed away from whatever he was seeing, shaking his head. His mouth moved. He was saying something, but there was no audio on the video. Just silent footage. The man's terror escalated. He fell to his knees, hands up in a defensive gesture. He was begging, pleading with whatever he was seeing. And then his body jerked backward violently, as if grabbed and pulled by an invisible force. He was dragged across the basement floor, out of frame, screaming silently. The camera continued recording the empty basement for another minute. Then the video ended. Kevin sat back. It was disturbing, sure, but it was clearly staged. Horror movie stuff. The dragged by invisible force thing was a classic effect. Just pull the actor with a wire you remove in post-production. He posted his assessment in the comments. Well done effect, but fake. 4/10 for effort. Other moderators and users chimed in with similar assessments. The post was labeled likely fake and moved to the archive. That night, Kevin had a dream about the video. In the dream, he was standing in that basement, and he could see what the man had been looking at. A figure, standing in the shadows, tall and wrong, with too many joints in its limbs, and a face that Kevin couldn't quite process. Like his brain refused to interpret what his eyes were seeing. The figure noticed Kevin watching and turned toward him. Kevin felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The figure moved toward him, impossibly fast, and Kevin woke up gasping, heart racing. Just a dream, he told himself. He'd watched a creepy video before bed. Of course he'd dreamed about it, but the next night, the dream came again. The same basement, the same figure. But this time, Kevin noticed something new. In the corner of the basement, barely visible in the shadows, was a camera on a tripod. The same camera recording the video he'd watched, and Kevin realized he wasn't dreaming about watching the video. He was dreaming about being in the video. The figure moved toward him again, and this time, Kevin saw its face clearly. It had no eyes, just smooth skin where eyes should be. But it was looking at him. It saw him. Kevin woke up at 3:47 a.m., drenched in sweat. Over the next week, the dream came every night. And each time, the figure got closer. Kevin began to dread sleeping. He'd stay awake as long as possible, downing energy drinks and coffee, but eventually exhaustion would take him, and he'd find himself back in that basement. Other users started commenting on the original post. Several reported having similar dreams. All of them had watched the video. One user, Night Owl 84, wrote, "I thought I was going crazy. Same basement, same figure in my dreams every night since I watched this. What the fuck is going on?" Another, Serum, posted, "I've started seeing it when I'm awake. Just for a second, in my peripheral vision. Tall, standing in corners, watching me. When I turn to look, it's gone. Please tell me I'm not the only one." Kevin's stomach sank. He'd been seeing it too. Quick flashes in his peripheral vision. A tall shape standing in his apartment when he came home from work. Gone when he turned his head. A figure in the background of reflections. There for a fraction of a second, and vanishing. He decided to investigate the video's origins. He contacted Deep Archive, the original poster. "Where exactly did you get this video? I need to know." The response came hours later. Estate sale in Pennsylvania. Old guy died, no family. His entire house was being liquidated. "I bought a box of old hard drives and electronics for $20. This video was on one of them, along with some old tax documents and family photos from the 90s. Why? Did you find out who the old guy was?" "Yeah, actually. His name was Gerald Finch. Died at 78. House had been untouched for years. Apparently, he was a recluse." Kevin looked up Gerald Finch, found an obituary from August 2023. No cause of death listed, no surviving family, no funeral arrangements. Kevin dug deeper. Property records showed Gerald Finch had owned his house since 1989. Before that, the records were spotty. But Kevin found something interesting. An old newspaper article from 2004, local man reported missing. The article was brief. A man named David Sheridan, age 42, had been reported missing by his employer when he didn't show up for work for 3 consecutive days. His car was found in his driveway, his house locked. No signs of foul play, but David had seemingly vanished. The date of the article? July 26, 2004. 3 days after the timestamp on the video. Kevin felt cold. He kept digging. He found David Sheridan's address from the police report filed at the time. The address was Gerald Finch's address. In 2004, Gerald Finch and David Sheridan had lived in the same house. Roommates? Relatives? Kevin couldn't find a clear connection. But David had disappeared, and Gerald had stayed in that house for another 19 years until his death. Kevin went back to the video. He watched it again, this time looking for any identifying details. And he found something he'd missed before. In the background, on a shelf, barely visible, were some photos. Kevin took screenshots, enhanced them, zoomed in. The photos showed 2 men. One was clearly the man in the video, David Sheridan. The other was older, standing beside David, smiling. Kevin found a photo of Gerald Finch from an old driver's license database. Same face. Gerald Finch had filmed David Sheridan in that basement. Had filmed whatever happened to him. Had kept the video for nearly 20 years. But why? And what was the figure that had dragged David away? Kevin decided to contact a paranormal investigator he'd interviewed for the subreddit months ago. Her name was Dr. Evelyn Carter, and she specialized in what she called mimetic hauntings, supernatural events tied to images, videos, or information that spread from person to person. "Send me the video," she said when Kevin explained the situation. "Are you sure? Everyone who watches it has nightmares. I've dealt with worse." "Send it." Kevin sent the file. Dr. Carter called him back 3 hours later. She sounded shaken. Double quotes Where did you get this? From a subreddit post. Why? Kevin, this video is a trap. Whoever filmed this didn't just capture something supernatural. They created a link. The figure in that basement, whatever it is tied to the video. When you watch the video, you become visible to it. You open a door in your mind, and it can step through. The dreams aren't just dreams. They're the entity accessing your consciousness, learning about you, preparing. Preparing for what? To cross over, fully, into our world. It needs anchors people who've seen it, who've made it real by observing it. The more people who watch the video, the stronger the entity becomes. And once it has enough anchors, enough believers, enough minds infected with its image, it can manifest physically. That's insane, is it? You've seen it. You've dreamed of it. Others have too. Tell me, Kevin, does it feel like just a dream? Or does it feel real? Kevin couldn't answer. Because she was right. The figure felt real. More real than his waking life sometimes. What do I do? Kevin asked. Delete the video. Remove the post. Stop the spread. And pray that not too many people have already watched it. Kevin did as she instructed. He deleted the original post from the subreddit, banned the user who'd posted it, and sent warnings to everyone who'd commented. But the video had been online for over a week. It had been downloaded 237 times. And Kevin had no way to track where those copies had gone. The dreams continued, but they were changing. The figure was no longer just chasing Kevin. It was showing him things. Memories that weren't his. Kevin saw through the fee. Story 10. The last one, rain falling steadily, wind through trees. Some stories don't have endings. They loop back on themselves, creating cycles that trap everyone who enters them. This is one of those stories. And if you're listening to this right now, you've already entered the loop. There's a concept in folklore called the telling curse. The idea that some stories carry power, and by hearing them, you become part of them. The story itself is an entity, feeding on listeners, growing stronger with each retelling. You might think this is just another scary story, meant to entertain you as you fall asleep to the sound of rain. But what if it's not? What if I told you that every person who's heard this particular collection, these 10 stories, has experienced something strange afterward? Let me tell you about Rachel. Rachel loved scary story podcasts. She'd listen every night, falling asleep to tales of ghosts, monsters, unexplained phenomena. She was a skeptic, never believed any of it was real, but she enjoyed the stories. They were comforting in their own way, proof that other people shared her fascination with the macabre. One night, she found a new channel. True Scary Stories Told to the Sound of Rain. Volume 137. 10 stories, each more disturbing than the last. She pressed play and drifted off to sleep somewhere around story 4. The next morning. Rachel couldn't remember most of the stories. They'd blended together into vague impressions of basements and mirrors and figures in darkness. But she felt unsettled, like she'd dreamed about the stories. Or like the stories had seeped into her subconscious while she slept. Over the next few days, Rachel started noticing things, coincidences. The building where she worked had recently closed off an entire floor, the 8th floor, for renovations. Her neighbor across the hall, whom she'd never met, hadn't picked up their mail in over a week. She found an old painting in her grandmother's attic that made her inexplicably uncomfortable. Small things, meaningless things, but they matched the stories she'd listened to. And with each matching element, Rachel felt a growing sense of unease. Then the dreams started. Rachel dreamed she was in a Victorian house, and a woman in a green dress was showing her around. "You're part of the pattern now," the woman said. "You listened to the stories. You invited us in." Rachel woke up and tried to rationalize. just her brain processing the stories she'd heard. Nothing supernatural, but the coincidences continued. A coworker mentioned he used to work security at an old hospital. Another friend showed Rachel a photograph of her great-aunt, and Rachel swore the woman in the photo looked familiar. Like someone from the stories, Rachel decided to listen to the volume again, this time while fully awake, to see if she'd missed something. She found the video black screen, rain sounds, 10 stories told in a calm, measured voice. As she listened, Rachel realized something disturbing. The 10th story, the one titled The Last One, was different than she remembered. In fact, she didn't remember a 10th story at all. Had she fallen asleep before it played? She listened carefully. The 10th story was about a woman named Rachel who loved scary story podcasts, who listened to a volume late one night, who started experiencing strange coincidences, who listened to the stories again and realized she was in them. Rachel felt her blood run cold. This wasn't possible. The story was describing her, describing this exact moment. She paused the video. Her hands were shaking. This had to be a prank. Someone had edited the video after she'd listened, personalized it somehow based on her viewing history or data. That was possible, right? But as she sat there, frozen, she heard something. Footsteps in the hallway outside her apartment. Slow, deliberate. Approaching her door, they stopped directly outside. A knock. 3 raps. Rachel's heart hammered. She wasn't expecting anyone. She crept to the door and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty, but the knocking came again. 3 raps. From inside her apartment. From the bedroom, Rachel turned slowly. Her bedroom door was closed. She'd left it open this morning. She was sure of it. She should leave. Should run out of the apartment. But some dark compulsion drew her forward. She walked to the bedroom door and opened it. Her bedroom looked normal. Bed, dresser, window. But on her bed, lying on her pillow, was a book. A physical book, old and leather-bound. Rachel approached slowly. She didn't recognize the book. She hadn't put it there. She lived alone. No one had a key to her apartment. The book's cover had no title, just an embossed symbol, a spiral, looping in on itself endlessly. Rachel opened the book to a random page and began reading. The page described a woman named Rachel who found a mysterious book in her bedroom, who opened it and began reading about herself. Rachel dropped the book. This was insane. Someone was doing this to her. Some elaborate, cruel prank. She grabbed the book, intending to throw it away, and saw that the pages were blank. No text, just empty pages, but she'd just read text. She'd seen it clearly. She opened the book again. Text appeared on the page as she looked at it, writing itself in real time. Rachel doesn't understand yet. The stories aren't separate. They're all the same story, told different ways. And she's been part of the story since the moment she pressed play. Who's doing this? Rachel shouted at her empty apartment. The text continued appearing. No one is doing this. The story is doing this. The story needs to continue. It needs new chapters. New characters. You're a character now, Rachel. You'll play your part. Rachel closed the book and shoved it in a drawer. She left her apartment, stayed at a friend's place for 3 days, told no one what had happened. When she finally returned home, the book was gone from the drawer. But that night, she found it again, this time in her car's glove compartment. She burned it, took it to a park, doused it in lighter fluid, and watched it burn to ash. That night, the book was on her pillow again, intact, undamaged. You can't destroy the story, Rachel. The story is bigger than one book. It exists in every telling, every listening, every mind it touches. You're trying to escape, but there is no escape. You're in the loop now. Rachel stopped fighting after that. What was the point? She lived her life, went to work, saw friends. But always in the background, there were reminders. She'd see people from the stories or people who looked like they could be from the stories. She'd experience moments of déjà vu, feeling like she'd already lived this scene, already had this conversation. And at night, she'd dream. Sometimes she was in the basement with the figure. Sometimes she was trapped in the wallpaper with Catherine. Sometimes she was driving a car with a passenger who wouldn't leave. Sometimes she was all of them at once, experiencing every story simultaneously. One day, Rachel decided to record her experience. She'd make her own video, tell her story, warn others about the cursed volume, about the loop, about what happens when you listen. She set up a recording. Black screen, rain sounds playing in the background. And she told her story. She told about finding the video, about the coincidences, about the book, about becoming trapped in the narrative. She told everything, hoping that by telling, she'd break free. When she finished, she uploaded the video, titled it, True Scary Stories Told to the Sound of Rain, Volume 138. She pressed publish and waited for the sense of relief, of completion, of having exorcised the curse by sharing it. But relief didn't come. Instead, she felt the loop tighten around her, because by telling her story, she'd created a new chapter. And anyone who listened to her volume would enter the loop themselves, would experience their own coincidences, their own dreams, their own integration into the pattern. The story was spreading, growing, feeding on new listeners. Rachel realized too late that she hadn't escaped. She'd become a transmission point, a carrier. She was infecting others, pulling them into the loop, just as she'd been pulled in. And now you're here, listening. You've heard all 10 stories. The wallpaper, the night shift, the passenger, the recording, the painting, the neighbor, the call, the mirror, the video, and this one, the last one. You think you're safe because these are just stories, fiction, entertainment. But are they? Think about your own life. Have you noticed any coincidences lately? Any small details that match the stories you've just heard? A strange neighbor? An antique you recently acquired? A video you watched that disturbed you more than it should have? Maybe you have. Maybe you haven't yet, but you will. Now that you've listened, you've entered the pattern. You're part of the loop, and the stories will find ways to manifest in your life. Subtly at first, then more obviously, until you can't tell where the stories end and your life begins. You'll try to dismiss this. You'll tell yourself it's just psychological, just your brain making connections that aren't really there. You'll rationalize every coincidence, every strange dream, every moment of unease. Until you can't anymore. Until the night. You wake at 3:47 a.m. and see something standing in the corner of your room. Or until you find a book you don't remember buying. Or until you look in a mirror and see someone behind you who isn't there when you turn around. The stories are patient. They'll wait. They'll weave themselves into your reality slowly, carefully, until you're so deep in the loop you can't find your way out. And then, just like Rachel, you'll feel the urge to share, to tell someone else, to warn them, or maybe just to pass the curse along, to ease your own burden by spreading it to others. You might make your own video, your own volume. True Scary Stories Told.